Hi, Colonel Macgregor. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
That's good. So there's quite a lot going on, but with Ukraine, obviously, and Russia. But I want to start by saying I'm really glad to have you back because it seems like you've been right about everything, including Nord Stream, thanks to Cy Hirsch.
Well, I suppose that's true, although it's unfortunate. I wish I had been wrong.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm in bizarro world, and I actually purposely avoid some of the news on Ukraine on some days because I get so frustrated that none of what's happening actually reflects my worldview. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about was that I guess a week or so ago, the approved mantra about Ukraine was as long as it takes. And 88 million people connected to the Biden administration and elsewhere in the world were saying that phrase exactly the same way. Could you explain for me how you think that happens? I mean, it might be a silly question, but do they get a memo or something from their diplomat saying this is our position and you must say it this way? It was really weird.
Well, you have to look at the people who are in charge across the West, whether it's Washington or Berlin, Paris, London. All of these people are part of a class of political figures who have embraced this notion of globalism. And I would add to that the dangerous notion that they are somehow or another morally superior to everyone else and therefore have a right to demand that the rest of the world do as they say, to put it bluntly. This is not a new phenomenon for us. We've been through this sort of nonsense before. The easiest example I can come up with is, of course, Vietnam, where we embarked on what we insisted was this morally justified crusade to throw back the forces of communism. Of course, we today don't talk about that, but we had someone else named John F. Kennedy who told everyone we should be prepared to bear any burden, to go anywhere and fight anybody in the name of freedom and democracy for the whole world. Well, that leads directly to Lyndon Baines Johnson, who then subsequently tells us we have to fight the communists in South Vietnam or we'll be fighting them in Los Angeles. Of course, a little later on in Iraq and Afghanistan, we heard people say the same things. If we don't fight the Islamists here, we'll be fighting them in the United States. And now we're hearing something very similar, that if we do not fight the evil Russians who are bent on conquering Europe, which of course is a lot of nonsense, then we'll eventually have to fight them in Poland and Germany and perhaps even here. This is the sort of thing that people that know nothing at all about what's happening will eagerly ingest and believe unless there is a counter narrative. And what's happened this time, in contrast to the Vietnam period, is there is no counter narrative. I mean, the media is universally controlled by the same people who control your governments, control the financial markets, and entertainment. They are all part of the same class, and they are committed to this sort of Trotskyite vision of the world where there's perpetual revolutionary war to advance their aims. The truth of the matter is none of us share their aims. We're not interested in homogenizing the world and turning it into some sort of Sovietized entity. I mean, a lot of people talk about these leaders as fascists. I think that's very misleading. I think, in fact, you're talking about this Trotskyite mentality that says we're going to erase borders. We're going to destroy national identity. We're going to eliminate individual cultures. We're going to forcibly homogenize the world, create new people. The notion that, people are fungible. And this is all bound up with a very strong atheist creed, that there is nothing beyond this world, and therefore what we do is ultimately irrelevant if we do it in the name of what we say is good and moral. And that's defined by these globalist views. That's the best way I can put it. But as long as you have a media that is 100% on board with these aims, how do you